Welcome to News Today, a PodNu service. Today is Thursday, March 24, 2022, Central European Time. Madeleine Albright, the first female Secretary of State for the United States, has died of cancer, her family said on Wednesday. She was 84 when she died. She was surrounded by family and friends, her family announced on Twitter. "We have lost a loving mother, grandmother, sister, aunt and friend." It said the cause was cancer. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright was chosen by President Clinton in 1996 to be the top U.S. diplomat, and she stayed in that role until President George W. Bush took office in 2001. Before, she was the highest-ranked woman in U.S. government history. She wasn't in line to become president, though, because she was born in Czechoslovakia and didn't move to the United States. As the Nazis took over Czechoslovakia in 1939, her family left. She spent the war years in London. This is how it worked. When Albright's parents changed from Judaism to Christianity in 1941, he was born. After World War II, the family went back to Czechoslovakia. In 1948, the communists took over and the family had to flee again. This time, they went to the United States, where they lived for a while. In 2012, President Obama gave the Medal of Freedom, the country's highest civilian honor, to Janet Albright because her life was an example to all Americans. Albright kept being vocal through the years. After leaving office, she said President George W. Bush used the shock of force, instead of alliances, to try to get people to talk. She said Bush had pushed away moderate Arab leaders and made it possible for a dangerous rift with European allies. However, as a refugee from Czechoslovakia, she was not a dove. She played a big role in getting the Clinton administration to get militarily involved in the conflict in Kosovo, and she was not a dove. She also took a hard line against Cuba. At the UN, she said that the Cuban shoot-down of a civilian plane was not cojones, but a cowardice. She advised women to act in a more confident manner and to ask questions when they occur and don't wait to ask. "It took me quite a long time to develop a voice, and now that I have it, I am not going to be silent," she told HuffPost Living in 2010. When the Senate Foreign Relations Committee asked her in January 2007 whether she approved of Bush's proposed surge in U.S. troops in bloodied Iraq, she responded, "I think we need a surge in diplomacy. We are viewed in the Middle East as a colonial power and our motives are suspect." As a person who was born and raised in the United States, Albright was a person who thought about the world in general. In her job as Secretary of State, she played a big role in convincing President Bill Clinton to go to war against the Yugoslav leader Slobodan Milosevic in 1999 because of how he treated the Kosovar Albanians in his country. "My mindset is Munich," she said a lot, referring to the German city where the Western Allies left her home to the Nazis when she was a child. She helped get the Senate to approve NATO's expansion and a treaty that limits the use of chemical weapons around the world. During her time as Secretary General of the United Nations, she led a successful fight to keep Egypt's diplomat Boutros Ghali from getting a second term. He said she was lying and pretending to be a friend. During her time at the UN, she said that the US should have a hard line on foreign policy, especially when it comes to Serbian leader Milosevic and Bosnia. She also once said to Colin Powell, then the head of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, "What's the point of having this superb military you're always talking about if we can't use it?" It almost caused Powell to have an aneurysm when he heard what Albright said. He died last year. As Secretary of State in 1998, Albright tried to make the Middle East a better place to live. "I am an eternal optimist," she said at the time. But, she said, getting Israel to leave the West Bank and getting the Palestinians to get rid of terrorists was a big deal, and it was hard. The first time Albright tried to expand the 1993 Oslo Accords, which set up the principle of self-rule for Palestinians on the West Bank and in Gaza, he made very little progress. When the Y agreements were made in 1998, she was a big part of them. They gave the Palestinians control of about 40% of the West Bank. She also tried to get a peace deal between Israel and Syria in 2000 when Syria's late president Hafez Assad was in charge. During the Balkan Wars and the Rwandan genocide, she helped make decisions about how the United States should act in the world. She was born on May 15, 1937, in Prague. She was the daughter of a diplomat named Joseph Korbel. She was born the family was Jewish, but when she was 5, they changed their religion to Catholicism. They all died in concentration camps. 3 of her Jewish grandparents died there. Albright said that only after she became Secretary of State did she learn about her Jewish roots. In 2013, she wrote a memoir called Prague Winter, a personal story of remembrance and war. It tells about the Jewish heritage of her parents and the fate of 25 relatives who died in the Holocaust. In an interview with The Washington Post, she likened the revelation of her Jewish past to being given a gift and having to open it up. It was in Denver that she and her family moved to when they came to the United States. Her father got a job at the University of Denver. He taught Condoleezza Rice, a young woman who later became Secretary of State, the first African-American woman to do so. Joseph Korbel was very proud of her. Albright was a student at Wellesley College from 1959 to 1959. Her first job was as a journalist. Later, she studied international relations at Columbia University, where she earned a master's in 1968 and a doctorate in 1976. During the Carter administration, she worked for the National Security Council. Before Clinton was elected, she advised Democrats on foreign policy and helped them think about what to do. In 1993, he made her the U.S. ambassador to the UN, and he did it. In the years after her time in the Clinton administration, she worked for a global strategy firm called Albright Stonebridge and was the chair of an investment advisory company that focused on emerging markets as well. She also wrote many books. Albright married journalist Joseph Albright, a descendant of Chicago's Medill Patterson newspaper dynasty, in 1959. They had 2 sons together. They had 3 daughters, then split up in 1983.